Passengers Want. So our Senior Vice President of Operations, Safety and Security, Careen, is going to present the high-level results of IATA's Global Passenger Survey. Following on from that, our Manager of Customer Experience, Youn is going to explain how we deliver what the passenger wants, harnessing biometrics and new technology. And then finally, Youn, our Director of Distribution, is going to talk about offers and orders, how we're transforming the buying of tickets and distribution and payment. So we'll go into more details. So Nick, I'd like to hand over to you. Nick, everybody will give their presentation and then we'll open the floor for questions. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. So you're just off lunch, so good afternoon, everybody. Everybody's off lunch, so hopefully you get a little bit more energy. I'm going to give you, as Catherine had mentioned, I'm going to give you a few details of global passenger survey results that we did. We announced them and went, and I had the luxury of, or pleasantry of presenting this in October in Chicago at the World Passenger Symposium and the World Financial Symposium there. And when I did so, I asked everybody to think about some of these metrics in terms of you as a traveler. Everybody in this room, I assume, more than likely travel here by airplane, and if they didn't today, do quite often. So think about these and whether or not they resonate with you or not. It seems to be, as you go through some of this, reminds me of just the way it is, and some very obvious areas to improve upon. We've been doing this survey since 2017. A lot of the things in this survey are not new, although some things do improve in terms of what the customers are telling us they want more of or less of, but a lot of the issues remain to be the same. And I find myself, and I said this at the conference that I was lucky enough to present in, ask a lot of questions over the last few years as to why are these things remaining to be issues, or why are these processes not improving? And I often get the response, because that's just the way it is. I used at the time a thing that, I don't know, resonates with me. It did. I can't even remember where I heard it, but it was the story of the 5 monkeys. So it was a gentleman who decided to run an experiment. I don't know if anybody's familiar with this in the room. No. So in the experiment, took the 5 monkeys, put them in a cage, and put a ladder in the cage, and at the top of the ladder there was a bunch of bananas. So sure enough, as soon as the cage was closed, the monkeys started to climb up the ladder, and the minute they went for the ladder, they were sprayed with cold water. Eventually, through social norming, any time that a monkey went for that ladder, they were sprayed with water. Eventually, the experimenter took one monkey out and left the other 4 in, and the new monkey made a dash for the ladder and was attacked by the other monkeys. That process continued till all monkeys were replaced with 5 completely new monkeys that had no idea why no one would climb that ladder, but they didn't, because that's the way it is. And so I use that in that presentation to sort of challenge ourselves to think about why is it the way it is, and can we do it differently? I won't hit every stat that we covered off, but I think the first one is pretty important. Despite all the rhetoric, despite all the push from multiple governments around the world to say how bad we truly are, our customers don't feel that way, and that's the most important thing. So in this survey, we had 82% of our customers are relatively satisfied or satisfied with the way that their journey went. And that's important, because we have a tendency to focus on the small percentage of when we get it wrong versus the majority of the time when we actually get it right. So EU 261 and the APPR in Canada and the US legislation for passenger rights is, in some cases, just a distraction. The survey itself focuses on touch points. So what we try to do is look at from the beginning to the end of the journey, so booking the curve, basically. And in that, we measure the satisfaction rate on all these different touch points. And it's probably of no surprise to anyone that On the ones that are primarily in the airline control, with the exception of one, and ones that have gotten the greatest amount of investment, perform relatively well. So in this case, you're looking at booking, travel options, the advancement of the net and .com, airport arrival process, check-in, which has been dramatically changed over the course of the last 20 years, the boarding process, onboard itself, transfer, border control, or rather final destinations, all fine. Where we see the biggest areas of opportunity, and they remain to be, security. I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. Border control and immigration, I'll also talk about that in a second. Bag drop, and baggage collection, and transfer. Those are the areas of frustration. Why? Because it was evident more than ever before in any of our survey results that our customers are speaking in terms of they want two things. They want convenience and they want speed. Probably no shock to any of us, because in our daily lives, that's what we are expecting primarily as well. And no patience for waiting for anything anymore. The advent of e-commerce and all the others, Wi-Fi, and I'm still old enough to remember no computers, let alone dial-up. I don't think anybody nowadays could actually withstand trying to use something like that, even smartphones. Everything is at our fingertips, so convenience and speed being the primary drivers of our customers should be really of no surprise to anyone. So then we broke things down into sort of the planning process, or planning a trip, the airport and the airport operations. And I'll have a slide at the end on baggage itself. So in terms of planning, the number one process is booking. Don't really seem to be very many concerns in terms of how that's managed, except for there are always areas of opportunity. So access to information is something that our customers they want it in one spot. And I think, and again, thinking about it in your own terms, or when you're planning your own trip, does that make sense? And I think, when you think about it, probably it does. Whether that's booking your flight, booking your destination, booking your car, and all those things. We're getting better at it, but there's clearly area to continue to improve upon. And what's in the price? That's become more and more evident as we've unbundled, which was something that the low-cost carriers had perfected, and then mainline carriers have done the same thing. So that's actually lack of transparency in a way has our customers are asking us to try and improve upon that area. Payment is an interesting one, because intuitively you think, well, we're pretty satisfied. 3 and 4 are okay with the payment process. 73% prefer using credit card and debit card, but that depends on where you are. And if you look at the slide, it's clear that depending on what region of the world you're in, your preferred payment method differs. And we're not set up like that. So we need to find a way to be able to address our customers' needs in terms of payment. What they're asking for, they want payment to be easier. In some cases, that's not the case. They want it tailored, which would be indicative here. They also want the possibility of split payments, which is something that very few carriers can enable today. And it makes sense, being able to perhaps pay for your ancillary a different way than you pay for your ticket, or use points and use money, use points and use debit card. So there is something to be, and again, same thing on the payment side, fee transparency is very important for our customers. I found this interesting because I wouldn't have answered this question the same way. When we asked our customers what was the most important reason for choosing a departure location, I automatically would have said price, but actually price is second. And location, proximity to an airport is the number one reason for choosing departure airport. So great to live next to an airport. Clearly that has a lot of variation if you're living in certain parts of the world where there are airports rather close in proximity, but in general, that proximity is number one reason. Ticket price, and then the airline availability comes in third in terms of selection of departure airport. Talking a little bit about immigration, customers are discouraged to travel through because of the complexity of immigration processes, primarily around visas or the proliferation of them. So more and more requirements of visa has become a deterrent to travel. I don't think that would probably be a big surprise to anyone. And in the next slide, you can clearly see what they're expecting. So 87% of our customers are willing to give whatever it takes to immigration to help improve the process. What we see today is more and more information being given to them, but the process is not really improving that much. Those that have been around long enough to travel are used to filling out paper forms on board aircraft. That now is done on a computer, which eventually gives you the same piece of paper to use to go through the process, depending on the location you're in. So in many cases, we haven't really improved anything. All we've done is digitized what would have been a manual process in the past. Also, in terms of visa requirements, our majority want them online. And it's a lot easier that way. That's a lot less complex. We can argue all day whether or not it's required to have so many visas, but if governments are going to go in this direction, then they need to go in the direction of providing e-visas for our customers' use. Speed. This is always a really interesting slide to me, simply because that's not the way we're set up today. We were, at one point, we were, but today that's not the case. Everything in an airport is built on dwell time. Shopping, restaurants, nothing really, when you think about it, is built to actually deliver upon the speed that our customers are looking for. 55% of our passengers would like to be notified of fast track up. They want to skip the queues. No surprise. Who doesn't want to skip the queue? 2 out of 3 believe that security checkpoint queue needs to improve. Yeah. 99% of the customers that travel in aviation in our industry are safe. Have no malintent and will never cause a problem. Yet we treat everybody the same. There are no risk-based principles in security, zero. And until security can grasp risk-based principles, we are forced to deal with this situation. We're seeing advancements in technology, which allows you to finally keep your belt on and maybe leave your laptop in your bag, but that depends on the location. Sometimes it depends on what part of the airport you're in. This needs to be addressed. And 91% said that they would be interested in trusted travel programs. We've seen those work. The US is the best example. They haven't really added any infrastructure. They haven't really added much in terms of space for the use of TSA, but through the use of trusted travel programs, they've been able to handle more people, more throughput. And that's what we need more of. Unfortunately, there's not very many other examples globally in terms of this, but it's something that we continue to advocate for. There's a growing desire to do stuff out of the airport, which is a good thing, because as we've seen, and you probably presented earlier this morning, the growth of the industry, we're back to, next year exceeding 2019 levels, and we'll be back on that same trajectory of growing again, 6-10% potentially over the course of the next 10-20 years. We're not going to build airports. There's very few places in the world that can build airports in a fast period of time, China being one of them. But we haven't seen any examples, and there's very few greenfield spaces outside of Saudi and China and in Asia Pacific. So we're going to have to find ways to use the facility even better. This is an area that it's good to see our customers going in, because the industry is going to be forced to do so. So immigration processes, sharing of information, check-in, but a larger degree of check-in, like check-in meaning when you go up to the airport, you only go through security. You don't ever have to see anyone again. And baggage. Handling baggage off airports has been a dream for about 2 decades now. It's time that we really dig in terms of processes and regulations required for that to be able to take place. Biometrics. Youn will give a much better explanation of where we're going in this regard, but it's very encouraging to see that not only this is the promised land, this is the new way of handling passengers in the future. This is in an airport. Almost every airport around the world is doing something all around the lines of biometrics. Almost 50% of customers in the survey use some sort of biometric when they went to the airport. 75% of the passengers want to use it, so they don't have to use their boarding card, passport anymore. I think that's logical. And 85% score positive in terms of satisfaction when it's used. So it is a promised land in terms of passenger processing. It will speed things up. It will make things more efficient. And what we lack today is standardization and harmonization to make it interoperable from one location to the other. We will get there, and we can't stifle innovation. So while some people are doing certain things at certain airports, eventually we will get to a place where it'll be something that's interoperable and harmonized, hopefully within my lifetime. With anything, data protection is important. So as we do this and as we scale this up, you know, customers have made it very clear that they want to ensure that we know how to handle our security by design, I guess, for lack of a better term, aware of data breaches, aware of how data is being shared, knowing how long data is being stored, and knowing how it will be handled in terms of deletion. Normal expectations, I think that the fine print, so to speak, that many of us scroll through and never read, but in terms of our design and the way this will move and go forward in terms of interoperability and harmonize, it has to be built this way. So the last slide, probably the one, why I left it last, I'm not really sure why I lost last, but it is certainly within our control, and it is an area that's been very frustrating for our customers. It was doing okay leading up to 2019, so our stats were illustrative of the fact that we were losing less, we were handling better, we were doing okay. Coming out of COVID-19, the wheels fell off, and we had a really, really bad year. Why was that? There was a multitude of issues, staffing perhaps being one, and an off-schedule operations being the second one, both of which in some ways go hand in hand. And as a result, we really lost our handle on baggage. We saw a lot of articles, saw lots of talk about Apple AirTags and all these things, because performance was just indicative of what we were 10 years ago. This year, fortunately, we are better, but we can't remain where we are. There's a lot of reasons why, but like I said earlier, we want to focus on a few key areas in terms of being able to build standards and allow for better handling of our baggage. One is to look at home pickup and delivery in terms of what regulatory requirements are needed to allow for that to be something that airlines can be able to invest in and do more of moving forward. Work on the connection process, which today remains to be relatively unharmonious, for lack of a better term. We need better tools, business intelligence tools in terms of managing the baggage process throughout the passenger journey, including being able to communicate disruption to customers in a much better way. And lastly, tracking. You know, you've probably heard maybe me or someone who predates me speaking about RFID. I think the dream of having a standard in place in terms of what technology is used to track a bag is perhaps passé, but tracking a bag is not. And Resolution 753, which requires our members to track bags, is still relevant. And so we will begin to work a journey of being able to measure compliance to 753 in terms of tracking, regardless of the technology that an airline chooses to use to be able to enable that. So there's a lot of opportunity in the baggage side. It's ultimately will improve consumer confidence, which will have an ancillary benefit for our airline members, but also have side benefits. Less bags in the airplane. So Tetris from our flight attendants will be reduced, delays will be reduced, but it also has another benefit from a security perspective, because the less bags that go through a checkpoint, the easier and faster the processing. So there's a lot of reasons why this has to get more emphasis and will starting next year and years beyond that. So I think all in all, the results were positive. Some clear areas to focus on. One of those, as I mentioned, in terms of biometrics and one identity, Youn will give a much better explanation to that, and I'll turn things over to her. Thank you.
Hello everyone. I hope still you are awake after your lunch. So Nick, in his presentation, they will learn the convenience and speed are the top priorities for passengers. And we think digital identity and biometric technology can be the key enabler to meet those expectations. And I'd like to take you through what efforts we are making in meeting those expectations using digital identity and biometric technology. So IATA has been working with industry partners and governments to transform the travel process under the One ID initiative. So we have looked at the journey and we have divided that into two focuses. One is digitalization of visibility, another is contactless travel. So here, admissibility means whether the passenger is in possession of their right documents to enter the destination country. And airlines are mandated to check those documents by regulations. And usually this is done manually at the airport. So digitalization of admissibility is really aims to enable passengers to prepare their documents and store those documents in their digital wallet on their device and share them with airlines remotely so that airlines can check those documents digitally before the passenger reaches the airport. And contactless travel aims to enable passengers to go through the touch points with biometrics recognition without having to show their documents by sharing their biometric image and journey details in advance. So for both focuses, the common drive is that we really want to move the processes off airport so that the passengers can arrive at the airport ready to fly, meaning ready to drop their bags and go straight to the boarding gates without having to see an agent to show their documents. And for this, we are looking at using digital identity and biometric technology. Then what is a digital identity? It is a broad term used broadly and can have different interpretations depending on the context and the use. But in general term, digital identity is a set of electronically captured and stored attributes and credentials that can uniquely identify a person. So for the purpose of One ID, digital identity can cover the biographic and biometric information of the passenger, which is the information of the passport or any other identity card documents that can be used for travel. And passengers have to share this identity information as well as the other travel document information with multiple parties throughout their journey for multiple purposes. And this should be done more easily, digitally, and in a privacy-protecting manner. For this, we are looking at using open standards that can also support global interoperability, scalability, as well as data protection. So speaking of data protection, this is a very, very important topic for airlines because airlines operate globally. That means they must comply with various data privacy laws and regulations across jurisdictions, and this is very challenging. That's why IATA has put privacy as the top priority in developing our standards and has set out the following principles to follow. One, first, passengers should be the one who own and control their data. There should be no centralized database, and it's the passenger who decides to share their information with other parties. And also, second, they have to, those parties who need the information, like airlines or airports, they should only request the minimum data required to complete their transaction. And also third, the passengers should be able to opt in to share their information in advance. And also they should be able to opt out if they want at any point of time. Then they can come back to the traditional processes. So here's how the journey looks. First, for the preparation for trip, the passenger can prepare their travel documents like passport, visa, and other documents as such, then they can send this information to the destination government through pre-travel verification portal, where the government can screen the documents and confirm and send the notification to travel to directly to the passenger. Then the passenger can store this information in their digital wallet. Let's say there is no such pre-travel verification portal and there's no such notification to travel, then what passengers can do is they can still convert their traditional paper documents into a digital form, and then they can store those information in their digital wallet, and then share that information with the airlines. So closer to departure date, they can share this notification to travel or the proof of these documents directly from their wallet with the airlines to demonstrate their admissibility. Then also, if the airport offers a contactless process at that time, then the passenger can be offered a contactless experience. And once the passenger agrees, then they can send their biometric image and also their journey details, so that once they arrive at the airport on the departure date, they can be recognized with biometrics and go through the touch points with biometrics. So using this digital identity and biometrics can bring many, many benefits to all parties. For passengers, of course, they can enjoy a seamless, contactless travel experience with advanced sharing. And also they can have higher assurance for protected privacy by sharing only the minimum required data. And also they can enjoy reduced queues and faster processing at the airport. For airlines, they can improve staff productivity. They can also save cost through automation, and also they can increase passenger data quality. This is important because they have to send this information to the governments. For airports, they can of course benefit from reduced queues and thus less stress or pressure on the airport infrastructure, and also they can optimize space efficiency. For government, if they receive digital identity credentials directly from passengers, then they can also have better quality of data. Then they can also strengthen their border security and improve border facilitation. And by doing so, they can also have opportunities to further combat human trafficking and other border criminal activities. So, to make this a reality, standards are the key. And we have been really working together with the industry partners and governments to develop the standards for this. For digitalization of disability, the recommended practice is now available. And also we developed the first technical specifications to support this digitalization of disability process. And they are available for the industry to test as well. For contactless travel, the recommended practice is also complete and available, and we will be working on the technical specifications next year. Also, we will work on another recommended practice on biometric handling, and they will be completed by the end of next year. So the same digital identity can enable a consistent and seamless travel experience beyond flights. So we looked at whether we can use digital identity credentials for the entire journey beyond just airport process, including shopping, for instance. So that means passengers should be able to share their information, identity information, as well as their preferences with service providing parties more seamlessly and digitally, and also in a privacy protecting manner, so that they can be provided more customized offers and better services. So for that effort, we undertook this end-to-end digital identity proof of concept this year. It was really to test the digital identity technologies and demonstrate interoperability. So in the park, there's a leisure traveler going from London to Rome, and she already holds her digital identity credentials created based on her passport, and also the airline's frequent flyers membership programs credentials from 3 different airlines in her digital wallet already. And then I will show you a video soon, and in the video you will see how she interacts with different parties throughout her journey and discloses her credentials seamlessly. So I will show a quick video here.
Aviation connects the world, and the experience of air travel is about to become more seamless than ever before. Digital identity technologies and biometrics will enable passengers to hold verifiable credentials in their mobile devices' digital wallets. These secure and trustworthy documents are tamper-resistant and easy to selectively share with relevant parties. Passengers can create a secure digital version of their passport through a two-step process, scanning their passport with a mobile device, which is then verified with a liveness check. These digital credentials, which remain under their control, can now be selectively shared throughout the travel process, from shopping to boarding and beyond. Passengers can also be issued other verifiable credentials, frequent flyer, student ID, and employee cards that will be stored in their digital wallet. When shopping for flights, travelers' ability to selectively share data, preferences, and loyalty status between parties will allow airlines to present a wider variety of better targeted offers to their customers and could unlock special fares. Legacy booking references and e-tickets will become a thing of the past. Instead, an order is created and issued to the passenger. All the information about the journey can now be accessed through this verifiable credential. Passengers are invited to check travel requirements. They can choose to share selected information to understand what is needed for their destination. The passenger is in complete control of their data at all times. Check-in will be a simple click. Digitally stored passport and order information can seamlessly be transferred by the passenger from the wallet to the connected systems. Travelers will no longer be required to manually input information such as reference numbers. A short SMS will confirm flight details. Traditional boarding passes may become optional in the future if a contactless process is available at the airport. Depending on the circumstances, travelers will be able to share their information selectively with different parties for a seamless and contactless process. This is made possible through interoperability that is supported by the industry standards IATA is building today. Our traveler is now ready to fly, with the freedom to navigate the airport using only a facial scan, to access lounges and board the flight. IATA's One ID contactless travel standards will make it a reality. Upon landing, biometric gates at immigration allow one to complete the process. All the technology necessary to do this is provided by multiple companies and is currently broadly in individual use. This proof of concept demonstrates how current standards and interoperability can shape a seamless end-to-end travel experience. The future of air travel is here. It puts travelers in control of their data and allows airlines and airports to create more secure, seamless, and personalized experiences for their customers.
Okay, so what's next step? So building on this POC, we are currently planning to do another POC next year with more extended scope. Of course, the POC's focus will remain on demonstrating interoperability with multiple parties and improving passenger experience. Doing these POCs is very important because this is relatively new technology for the industry. So the more we do these POCs and pilots, the more we can learn. So that's why IATA encourages our industry partners to take part in more these type of POCs, pilots, and trials, and share their lessons with us. And also, we are continuing to develop the tools to support the industry. Of course, we will continue to work on the standards and implementation guidance materials next year, and there will be a Youn ID training and also the publication for the introduction to Youn ID will be available. That will be available early next year. And of course, we will continue to support industry for more POCs, trials, and implementations going forward. Thank you. That's the end of my presentation.
Thanks, Youn. Thank you very much. What I will just do it slightly differently. I'm just going to stand in front of you, just to change, perspective a little bit. And you just had lunch, and I can see some of you were dozing off. All of this is really, really cool stuff. And what I'm going to be taking you through is what it takes for the industry to be able to embrace all these technological developments, and particularly digitization. It's only if we move to a world of offers and orders, and I'll tell you what this is about in a few more minutes, that you can embrace this fully. You cannot do it with today's technology that airlines use, which is decades old, if not half a century old. So, last year, some of you may remember we presented to you this initiative, this program, the Modern Airline Retailing Program. And it's through this program that we're embarking the industry on this journey to what we call 100% offers and orders, which is the only way for our members, for the airlines, to be truly customer-centric. To get closer to the experience customers have on a pure, real retailing online experience. There are three pillars to it: selling with offers, fulfilling with orders, and digital identity. I'm going to take you through each three very quickly, see how we progressed since last year. But just before that, I thought you might be interested in a little timeline as to what we've been through to put things into perspective. So, you've all booked a ticket, haven't you? Right? You've all made a reservation to fly one day. Well, believe it or not, but that PNR, the passenger name record, it dates back 60 years. And it's not changed in the last 60 years. Okay? That technology has not changed. 30 years later, the airlines did what was a revolution at the time, electronized the paper ticket process. That took 14 years. 2 years after that, we electronized the electronic miscellaneous document, because when you buy something other than a flight, you need this document called an AMD, which is digitized to better sell ancillaries. And then, a few years later, we introduced the NDC standard. I'm just going to pause here for 1 second. New distribution capability was introduced. The reason was simply that until then, or until today, the technology that powers the way airlines are able to sell through travel agents in particular is EDIFACT technology. It's 40 or 50 years old. And what it means is that when an airline has a business class seat to sell, or whatever product or service, the only way the travel agent can materialize it, access it, it's through an alphanumeric code. So imagine if you had to sell a sofa or a pair of socks, but as a seller, all you had to reference in front of your customer was an alphanumeric code. It'd be a little bit frustrating. It wouldn't help your process, and it wouldn't make you very customer-centric. So that was what NDC is designed to do. 4 years later, we introduced one order. You heard Youn refer to orders earlier as well, and I'll come back to that a little bit later. And then during COVID, there was an acceleration to the whole digitization, particularly this journey to retailing. And here we are today in 2023, in the scope of this modern retailing program, towards 100% offers and orders. So you can see there's a massive need for at least some kind of modernization here for our industry to keep up to pace with everything else that's been going on around us. So now, back into this first pillar. So this is all about giving customers more transparency, access to more capabilities and products through the travel agent channel, so it can catch up with the technology that's evolved on the airline websites. It's evolved much faster. There's been a gap between the two. So this is what NDC enables in particular, to get customers closer to that retailing experience when selling through travel agents. And it's the most mature of the three pillars I talked about. And I'll just show you here a few just press cuttings that just show what's been happening over the last few months. Just lots of announcements. It's not only airlines who are embarking on the journey, but it's also technology providers and travel agents as well. Things are moving, there's momentum, and there's even one quote here from one of your media colleagues describing some of the benefits that some of the customers are already seeing thanks to some of the changes they've been making. Now the second pillar. Remember, the first pillar is about fulfilling, about selling with offers. The second pillar is about orders. And here we go. I talked about the PNR, this reservation, I talked about the tickets, I talked about the EMD. This is about using the one order standard, which is about bringing these three artifacts together into one single reference, so that when the customer buys something through a travel agent or through the airline, it's just one single record, just like when shopping through Amazon. So let me just go back to explain to you where we are today. You see what these things are? Yeah, you can see on the left-hand side, the booking. This is the PNR that dates back to 1964. Now, you see on the left here, there's a little 5-6 digit code. When you've bought a trip, you receive that email. How often have you had that 5-digit code? Sometimes it's an airline code, sometimes it's what you call a GDS code. That's what you've booked. And when you actually pay, you get the other document here on the right, which is the ticket. It's got 15 digits on the bottom right. So that's what you paid. And then, as I said earlier, if it's not the flight, and it's at lounge access, or an ancillary, a seat, for example, you get this other document, which is an EMD. So no wonder, when you want to change, add, remove, or if there's a disruption, it gets rather clunky, yeah? to resynchronize all these components. So the whole idea behind this one order is to say, well, why can't we do just like any online retailer? And Amazon, for example, have just one reference, just like this. So instead of having three artifacts, numbers you can't make them know what to do when you're asked to put in this number or this number, you've just got one single reference, order confirmation. One service can be a flight, one service can be the seat you booked, and one can be the landing, etc. This is what one order is about. This is about moving to the world of offers and orders, bringing all these three artifacts, decades old, into one single reference, just like any retailer. But there's a challenge. This requires a massive change across the whole airline structure. It impacts commercial, it impacts IT, it impacts finance, and even the ground operations as well. Which is combining the tickets, PNRs, and EMDs into one single record. A lot of work needs to be done, which is why last year we announced the creation of a consortium of 12 airline groups. These are airlines who said, yes, we're already pretty advanced on the journey to airline retailing, for NDC in particular, we're already seeing some benefits. We can see this end vision of 100% offers and orders, getting all these artifacts into one single order as well. We're ready to invest time, energy, resources to work with IATA for the benefit of the broader industry to accelerate the journey. So this consortium has already delivered, well, quite a few components. I'll just share three here. One is put together a business case, a generic business case that each airline can use individually to work out, what are the different levers I can consider to drive value when moving on this journey. And this is available on our website. Also, it put together what we call a reference architecture. It's a set of business capabilities an airline needs in its IT to be able to operate in this new world of offers and orders just like any retailer, no longer bespoke architecture. The benefit of that is that all the airlines have a similar end architecture that they can engage with the technology providers about, so that everyone kind of converges in the same direction, which will help speed things up, make it more cost effective, and drive more competition as well, because it's much more visible and everyone's buying into that same direction. Last year, it would be so easy if you could just flick a switch tonight, get rid of these PNRs, these tickets, these EMDs, flick another switch tomorrow, and be in a world with just a single order. But the transition is very, very complex. It takes time. So the consortium did some work here also to help the airlines look at some areas they could consider to move ahead. But the other very part of good news is, in this piece of work, we have 15 technology providers, some of the usual suspects in this area of travel, but also some less usual suspects. Come and join the journey with us, who signed off this piece of work and expressed their commitment to the airline to invest on this journey. And at our symposium in Chicago last month, several technology providers announced they're already investing in this journey. So the journey has begun. Now, move on to this third pillar, which is digital identity. So Youn explained how that can drive a seamless experience from the customer point of view, which is really great, and I'm really looking forward to this coming into practice, certainly for my own travels as well. But on the business side as well, it has an impact. I'm not going to get into technical details, but in the world of offers and orders, the world of NDC, the airline takes control of its offer, constructs the offer itself, which gives it more agility instead of the GDS constructing the offer. And at the time, when the GDS acts as that central role, it also acts as the point of contact for all the partners who work with the airline in terms of authenticating and identifying. So, in this world of offer and orders, where this intermediary no longer carries out that role, the airline will have to identify the partners with which it does business. And it will be able to do that thanks to digital identity as well. IATA has been setting up a platform of digital credentials that enable them to identify their partners. So great, it's a good technical thing, it's cool, but what it does mean, it means that for travel agents, to be able to be onboarded, which means to be able to be recognised and work with the airline, it'll be a matter of days, whereas today it takes several weeks to do that. So my last point I want to talk about is payment. Nick alluded to it in the survey. You know, a third of the respondents said they want more flexibility. Also, what we heard is that, well, we didn't hear it because Nick did say it, it was in the survey, is that in 25% of the cases when customers wanted to buy add-ons after the ticket, you know, the seats, a bag, a lounge, the payment didn't go through for lots and lots of reasons. And imagine as a customer, when it happens to you, and right at the end of the process, it doesn't work, you get really annoyed. But so does the airline, because you wanted to buy something because you saw value as a customer, and the airline didn't get the revenue. So it's very, very frustrating. So payment actually cuts across the three pillars of this program. And we put together a piece of work, a program of work to help look into this, and we're looking at 5 different areas in payment. One is to make it easier for the customer, to secure a preferred method of payment for the customer at every touch point. It takes time, it's very complex, to put together to make new methods of payment available. To enable split payments that Nick referred to. In some parts of the world, this is very, very important. To be transparent with payment fees as well, just again, transparency. And here also, we will be putting in place a new standards to support these developments. So, just to close before we have the questions, because someone removed my last slide that would have given me the little hint to close, just say that the industry is ready for this journey to modern retailing. There's massive momentum on moving to offers where the airline takes control, can push more information out to the customer. When it comes to orders, there's definitely momentum from the consortium airlines, and I said the technology providers who are already investing. And this is ever so important, because customers want the agility. They can find on all the retailing websites, all the retailing experience they have outside. They want to see that with the airlines. But again, let's say the good news is the train has left the station and things are moving. Thank you.
Thank you, Yannick. We have around 10 minutes for questions, so I'll open the floor to questions for.
Hi, I am Jose from Colombia. I have a question. What are the main barriers for this type of initiatives like the digital identity and the one single reference? Is something related with the mindset, with the legacy, or is something more related with the budget of the airlines?
I think it's you can tick all those boxes. There's definitely a need for investment, and it's clear that our airline members have been severely hit after COVID. There's still masses of balance sheet repairing to be done amongst the airlines. On the other hand, I'd say it's great to see that despite these challenges, they're investing in this journey, so they do see value in that. I think also another complexity is that there are many stakeholders to bring on board. The good news is that everyone is open to this, everyone thinks this is common sense, this is a no-brainer. And all these people need to work together, but you always have different people working, going at a different pace. So that's a challenge as well. And that's a big challenge for us to make sure that collaboration is top of the agenda, we identify all the stakeholders and let them work together. And finally, I think the point you made about mindset is really, really important. You know, one of the biggest enemies we have is people who in today's world, the legacy world, moved into the new world, but tried to replicate the legacy way of doing business in the new world. And that's a big danger, and that's what mindset shifts is about.
And I concur what Yannick just mentioned. I face the same exact barriers also, but also additionally because digital identity and the technology, the open standards that we are looking at is not necessarily familiar to the airline industry. So it takes a lot of time for us to kind of build that awareness, what this technology means, or how it works, and what it means to the airline's operations, and what it means to passenger experience and such. So it's taking a lot of time and effort to build that awareness, not only among the airlines, but also among the other stakeholders, airports and governments, because we have to collaborate with each other. So I would say I would just add that barrier to what, yes.
No, we probably repeat.
Any other questions?
Yes. Thank you. Karen Campbell, Nick, can I just ask you, I know I'd seen the passenger experience survey earlier, but I was just, when you picked out that thing about the very high percentage of people who are selecting their fare based on where the close proximity to the airport, it's a big number, it's a big factor in that. So when the people you polled, were they evenly distributed around the world? I just think because there's a lot of places where people don't really have a choice of an airport. You know, I mean, there's, you know, so I'm just trying to work out how many people are thinking, yeah, I've got 2 or 3 airports that I could get to, and I'm going to pick my ticket based on the one I like or one that's nearest.
Yeah, well, every survey has some challenges in terms of demographics and breakdown, but you know, by and large, we did our best effort to have a good regional representation, as well as demographic representation as well, so that we could sort of be able to draw a conclusion which would be within a confidence level that we were comfortable with, and in this case, we were. So it was distributed enough to be able to make a conclusion that this was accurate.
Yeah, Ian from Travel Weekly. I understand the logic of moving to modern retailing, that makes perfect sense. And I get the rationale for digital identity, but I'm struggling with the connection between the two. If you could just explain that, because they seem sort of forced together. I can't see how they fit together. Secondly, could you just say something about the implications of personalised offers for transparency and comparison shopping? And could you say something about the pain points in this, in the transition to offers and orders? Because there are pain points, aren't there, when it comes to servicing and so on? Thanks.
Okay. I think in the digital ID, so I'll give you one example, the B2B example I gave earlier is that for travel agents, for example, today the authentication is done by the GDS because of all the functions it carries out as an intermediary. In a world of offers and orders, particularly with NDC, in other words APIs, where they have got control, the airline now is responsible for ensuring it can identify and authenticate the partners it does business with. So it's kind of moving that capability from the central player to the airlines. Now to do that, they can either do it in a proprietary way, or they can do it through a standardized digital identity process. And I would add, I don't know if you want to comment on that, but for the whole digital identity piece to work, the example she gave on the video, you can't apply that to P&R's tickets and EMDs. It's just not robust enough to link into something as modern as that. It's not designed to work with that. You need the order component, which is one single artifact as opposed to 3 for digital ID to properly work. Your second point about personalisation and comparison shopping, I think we were very, very clear at the start of the journey to MDC that what we call anonymous shopping would always exist. So there's always a way to look at an anonymised shop and compare what you get. And then if an airline decides to give a personalised offer, like probably they do already in some cases in the context of loyalty programs, then of course they'll choose to do that based on whatever commercial policies they have. But you'll always be able to shop anonymously. And servicing, you said, Ian, is there's been a lot of talk about servicing. It's been that, I won't say an elephant because it's been talked about a lot, and there's a lot of sort of in the last few months. IATA published a paper about 2 months ago based on feedback from a lot of constituents across the value chain, explaining some of the challenges in servicing. One thing that was clear with our members and some of the tech providers in our shop order standards working group, the advisory forum actually, is that the standard is now fit for purpose when it comes to servicing. However, what is true is that there can be some challenges in servicing as the standard is being implemented. And what we found over the last 12 months, when we started to bring in the same room an airline, an aggregator, so GDS for example, the travel agent and the corporate booking tool, and we asked them together to share the challenges they find in servicing, they actually realised that in all cases it's a matter of implementation, and they're never very clear, well they were not clear, who was responsible for what. So part of a way to solve the challenges in servicing is for all these stakeholders to work together to sort out where the issues are. Now, just to close on that, I would say that for some TMCs it works very well. I'll give you the example of Spot Niner, traded publicly in Chicago at our symposium last month. 90% or more than 90% of their travellers on NDC serviced automatically through NDC. For some other travel agents, it's more complicated. But that could also, well, it is dependent on their whole setup, how they work with the different partners and the tech stack that lies behind it.
Perhaps I can add one example to the personalization and the digital identity. So in the future, we hope that the passenger could hold their credentials in their digital wallet. So because if you look at the entire journey, the passenger has to communicate with so many different parties for so many different things. And we hope that this behavior or this action can take place only sharing the information directly from the passenger's digital wallet and the service providing party. I'll give you one example. One of the credentials that passengers can hold is their accessibility status. For instance, if passengers have reduced mobility, then they can have those information as digital credentials and store there in their digital wallet, and then they can share that information easily with airlines or airports who provide the assistant, accessibility service to the passenger. Then the passenger, if you look at today's process, the passenger has to call the reservation center, and usually the machine responds, and it's very difficult to get their service booked. So we hope that in the future there could be more credentials that can represent the passengers' identity as well as their preferences, so that they can easily communicate with many different parties.
Thanks. I think we've got time for 2 more questions, so we'll go.
Hi, Sally Gethin here again. Nick, going back to your interesting introduction and overview and the survey, you mentioned that you talked about fees and how passengers want more transparency on pricing and costs when booking. Well, there's been a lot of publicity, negative I'm afraid, regarding airlines, particularly in the UK, over drip pricing, where airlines themselves lure in, possibly you could say, customers with a low headline fee, and then as you go through, invest your time in that process, find there's all sorts of hidden fees that comes out much higher. And so I think there's a lot of passenger trust that's been lost on that. And in fact, the British government says now it's going to introduce some potential new regulation on that front. So I'd be interested in your comments about that. Also, going back to the issues with the digital ID, the biometrics, and work you're doing on that front. I mean, I know it sounds a basic question, but what if your phone gets stolen or something happens to your device and you're solely dependent on that one digital device with nothing analog to back it up whatsoever, or even worse, that hackers find a way to infiltrate any global system, they'd see it as a target. Thank you.
I'll let you answer that one.
Yes.
I
think there's multiple answers to the digital IDs. On hidden fees, we're aware of some interventions from the EU, primarily around cabin baggage, and some of the discussions that are happening in the UK around fees as well. Too early to tell where the legislation will, if it goes anywhere. But for sure, it's not lost on our members that transparency is necessary, and we're getting more and more feedback from consumers that is the case. This is the first time it's actually showed itself in our survey to a point where it was worth raising that transparency is of concern. That hasn't always been the case. So clearly, as airlines have gotten into unbundling, which I've mentioned earlier, it does create some confusion amongst the consumer in terms of what's included and what isn't. And so greater transparency will be a priority on behalf of our members. And as well, in terms of legislation, we'll do our best to avoid unnecessary legislation on something that can be resolved without requirement of regulation that will never change. And that's, performance-based regulations is something that we're very, very keen on, but we're not keen on regulations that are meant to stay in perpetuity forever, which is often the case. So we're aware of the issue. It's new in terms of its priority, but it is something that our members are very much aware of. And on the digital identity front, you get something there?
No, I just think it's important to recognise as well, like passengers want the option sometimes of just travelling on a flight without a bag, because obviously it's a cheaper base fare. That's also.
Yeah, choice is important as well. Yeah.
Okay, for the first question, when passenger has lost his phone, then they can use passport. So we don't think that this using digital identity will replace the entire travel documents and everything. We only expect that majority of passengers should be able to use those technologies, and we also understand that there will be some people who won't be able to use that technology. So always there should be the fallback process. And for your second question about cybersecurity, I think this is more the question for the trust framework. So in the digital space, and there are already, the cybersecurity regulations or framework defined by the governments. People are already using credit cards from your phone. It's the same thing. So if there's a need for the industry to come up with some recommendations regarding this cybersecurity in using this digital identity, then we will look at it, whether IATA has a role to play in that. But we also understand that there are already existing guidance and recommendations produced by governments, and we hope that we can leverage that too.
Final question.
Hi, it's Andreas Schulz again. Yannick, as far as the secret world of business travelers is concerned, there's an ongoing discussion with NDC that you will offer more flexibility, personalization to the individual traveler. On the other hand, the travel manager has the fear to risk control that the individual traveler will lose a little bit the guidelines of the corporate travel rules. How do you see that kind of conflict?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I would say it's a secret world of corporate business travel. It's pretty open. There's a lot of talk about it, and we've seen quite a few conversations. So we have an advisory body of corporate buyers called the Travel Manager Advisory Group. It's about 25 buyers in North America, 20 or so in Europe, and we talk to them regularly about some of these issues. And you're absolutely right. That function is going through a massive transformation. But I would say that one of the reasons that corporate buyers appreciate what we're doing, certainly some, maybe not everybody, but the direction in which we're heading is that they face a massive challenge from their travellers today. Because very often their travellers come to them saying, hey, I found this price a lot cheaper on their own website. Yeah, why didn't your business travel agent give you that price? And thanks to the work we're doing in the area of NDC, it will enable the airlines to be much more broad and consistent in the availability they make of the fares through the different channels. So that will solve one of the problems for the corporate buyer. And you're right that the corporate buyer, one of their big challenges is control of the travel policy. So what we hear from the corporate buyers we talk to is that because of this move to airline retailing, there'll be easier access to fares, more transparency. So because today, through the business travel channel, it's very cumbersome or complex to sell ancillaries, right? They have to go to their own website. So they'll have that back under their control, for example. And also, the corporate buyers say that they're pleased because they will be able to talk differently to the airline, maybe have some special recognition for their company. So everything that we're doing in this journey to retailing provides the corporate buyer with more tools to control and improve the experience of their customer. Because one thing that they keep saying to us, saying to me is, Yannick, our job is not just about the lowest fare, it's also about the traveller experience. And through this, they see opportunities to improve that. So I think overall, we're hearing that they feel it'll be better for them. But it's true that as we go through this disruption, there will be a bit of noise and some frustrations down the road. But at the end of the day, it should enable them to have better visibility and offer better service to their travellers.
Thanks, Yannick. Thanks, Youn, and thanks, Nick. Now we're moving on to cargo. So I'd now like to invite Rachel, Brendan, and Hank to the stage, please. They're asking if they can have a round of applause.